These three girls appear perfectly normal. They do perfectly normal things. But there is something very puzzling about them.
I don't think I could explain what's going on, really.
People ask, well, where did it come from? Well, who knows? Who knows? We certainly don't.
They have selective mutism. They can speak, but with most people, they don't.
I think, well, is there something wrong with me? It is heartbreaking.
They can't go on not talking.
How can you have a relationship with a child who won't speak to you?
And she wants to do it. She wants to be the same as everybody else.
But to speak a single word to those they love can seem impossible.
Are you ready to talk now?
Selective mutism isn't easy to make sense of. Red is 8. Most people never hear her talk, but she's found other ways to get her point across.
What sort of things do you like?
I don't think I could explain what's going on, really. Like all good parents, we've tried bribery and corruption. We'll take you to the park if you talk at school today. If you answer the register, we'll buy you a chocolate bar. She has a set of rules for who she can and can't speak to.
These rules are different for every selectively mute child. Red talks normally with her mum and dad, but many of her relatives have never heard her. She has a best friend she will chatter happily to.
What's 3 lots of 200?
But she never ever speaks in school.
Selective mutism, the formal definition of it is consistent failure to speak in certain social situations. Most of them are fine with immediate family, but each of these children have their own pattern of who they can speak to and who they can't.
But the pattern is baffling. There is no rhyme or reason to their silence. 10-year-old Megan goes cheerleading every Thursday, but she doesn't ever cheer. The only place Megan really speaks openly is at home with her family. But not when anyone else is there, especially not a documentary film crew.
What's it normally like here?
Noisy. Really noisy. And if you weren't here now, she would be saying, oh, they got a bigger bit than me, or...
Could I make you speak, Megan, if I tried hard enough, do you think?
It often comes over that these children are just doing it deliberately, they're just putting it on. But in fact, they couldn't maintain it for its intensity or for its persistence. There are children who have broken limbs and they haven't cried. There might be a silent tear, but there's no movement, no cry for help. They just could not maintain it that long if this was deliberate.
Can you talk? You can talk, but you don't talk. Why don't you talk, Red?
It's hard to explain, but even harder for those that Red doesn't speak to. Red's granddad, John, and his partner Eileen love to have their granddaughter to stay. But in the 8 years since she was born, they haven't heard her utter a word.
Obviously, heard her cry as a baby, as some parents and grandparents do. But when it comes to actually talking, nothing, ever. That's it.
Grandad might not hear much from Red, but he still sees her regularly. She looks forward to visiting his Yorkshire home.
Hello! Come on in, come on in. Are you alright? Yeah. Are they new glasses? But they're different ones. I've got no explanation for it as such. It's nothing that we've done sort of mentally, physically or anything else to it. All we've ever shown is a love and affection. Right, now here we go.
Faced with a silent granddaughter,
You wouldn't want to go far in this, would you?
John hasn't stopped talking
Sounds like an engine, doesn't it?
and talking
Look at that big bird there. What is it? Is it a swan?
and talking.
Would you like to go on the train? It'd be a lot easier than this, wouldn't it?
But after 8 years of constant chatter, he's getting a little bit tired.
Are you putting any effort into this? She'll nod or shake her head, you know, no, I don't want this, yes, I do want that. And she'll communicate in all other ways other than talking. How are you getting on at school? Are you top of the class? And what's your favourite thing you do at school? Spell it out on there. Maths. Poor old Grandad's doing all the work again. It is difficult and frustrating. You know, you want to pick her up and shake her and say, talk to me, but you know you can't because that would do nothing.
Although she looks a confident and happy little soul, surprisingly, Red finds the thought of speaking to Grandad and most other people strangely scary and stressful.
Well, I think the best way to understand selective mutism is to think of it as a phobia. This very real, intense fear of talking to somebody or somebody hearing your voice. All those children are doing is controlling their own anxiety. By not speaking, they're removing themselves from the stress.
But coping with a girl who can speak but doesn't is painful, especially when she's your only grandchild.
I think, well, is there something wrong with me? Is it me? Is it, you know, and it is heartbreaking is not too strong a word to use. It is heartbreaking.
The family have decided they need help to get Red talking to her Grandad.
How can you have a relationship with a child who won't speak to you? So, and I think the older she gets, the harder it's going to be.
Just hoping and praying that one day she'll get over this condition and she will talk freely like a normal child.